may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, we talked about everyone's favorite topic, and that is the underrated players, the guys we should be going out and trying to target. Now, let's get into the players that we are going to sell high. I know this is going to ruffle some feathers. I know some people are going to get upset with me, but I think if anything, this is actually the much more important video to pay attention to out of the two, just because I think that we are going to be looking at these players seeing a drastic decrease in value over the next month or so, and when that is the case, I think we need to be taking notice. We need to be getting them off of our rosters. That way we can continue to go into the fantasy football playoffs and have great success. But before we get into the video, guys, please, a couple things here. One, make sure you drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Nobody outworks us. Nobody uploads more than us or live streams more than us. Secondly, the most important thing is please go down to the comments. Let me know any suggestions on what y'all would like to see going forward with the channel. Let me know if I can be doing anything differently to improve it for you. And really, I just want to do everything that I can to make sure I'm providing y'all exactly what y'all want. Okay, so let's get into the video and let's talk about these 5 wide receivers and someone that I've discussed so much in the live streams, so I'm sure y'all are annoyed with me by now, but it's going to be Travis Fulgham. And the reason I think that we need to be selling Travis Fulgham is a lot of people have really bought into the narrative that Travis Fulgham can be the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season. Personally, I can't believe that. I will be the first one to admit that Travis Fulgham has looked extremely good. Exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles needed in the absence of Jalen Reagor, in the absence of Deshaun Jackson, in the absence of Alshon Jeffrey, in the absence of Dallas Goedert, in the absence of Miles Sanders, in the absence of Zach Ertz. I mean, there's just been nobody on this offense but Travis Fulgham, and he's really been able to step up. If anything, I thought that we were going to see a little bit more production going to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, the 2019 second-round pick by the Philadelphia Eagles. Regardless, that didn't happen, and that went to Fulgham instead, and Fulgham has been consistently a wide receiver 2, providing some wide receiver 1 weeks as well for you along the way. This past week, he's coming off of seeing 7 targets, got 6 receptions, almost 80 yards and a touchdown. Now, the reason that I think we need to be selling Travis Fulgham going forward is I don't think he's a special talent. And I know that's extremely kind of polarizing to say now that we've seen him perform for the past 3 or 4 weeks. But going forward, we have to understand that at the end of the day, Travis Fulgham was a 6th round pick by the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions actually ended up cutting him, leading to him going to Philadelphia. And then we see that the Philadelphia Eagles go out, invest in Jalen Reagor with a 1st round pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. The first week that he's back from his injury, we actually see Jalen Reagor get about the same amount of targets as a Travis Fulgham. And on top of that, we see that Dallas Goedert is coming back to this offense. And while Dallas Goedert was not able to command the target share in week 8, I think going forward out of their bye week, we are going to see Dallas Goedert be 100% healthy and be one of these tight ends that we expect to get anywhere from 5 to 10 targets any given game. And on top of that, we're going to get Miles Sanders back to this backfield. We know that the Philadelphia Eagles will prioritize a little bit more to run the ball to get targets to Miles Sanders out of the backfield. So all of this is pointing towards Travis Fulgham seeing his opportunity get just absolutely slashed with where his current target share is. I will say that I think we can expect the efficiency of a Travis Fulgham to slightly improve once we get weapons back to this offense, just because Fulgham won't be getting all of the defensive attention. But still, at the end of the day, the target share is a lot more important than the efficiency because it's a lot easier to project. Okay, now our next wide receiver, someone I've been telling you to sell high on for pretty much a month now, and this is going to be Mike Evans. So with Mike Evans, he's coming off a performance which is honestly a little bit disappointing for what I expected. Them going up against the New York Giants without Chris Godwin, with no Antonio Brown. I thought that we were going to see Mike Evans come in and be a top, I would say 5 to 8 wide receiver. That was not the case. He was only able to get 7 targets, wasn't able to crack 60 yards, and he saved his day with a touchdown. I mean, just extremely disappointing from a wide receiver that I love the talent profile of. We just have to understand that with Mike Evans, he has not been able to produce in any game that Chris Godwin has been active. Yes, I guess you could point to the game, I believe it was back in week 4, where Mike Evans had 2 touchdown catches on 2 receptions for 2 yards, and just obviously something that's not going to be predictable going forward. And when we are looking at him with Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin in the offense, just like what we were talking about with Travis Fulgham, where we can't rely on the target share, I think it's going to be the same thing with Mike Evans and Tampa Bay. And yes, I love Mike Evans, I love the talent profile, but at the end of the day, the targets are going to be a lot more predictive on fantasy football success, and Mike Evans has just not been getting that. Okay, now my next wide receiver, someone that we were higher on than anybody coming into 2020. I am just willing to throw in the towel here. I'm willing to say that we are wrong. I've been willing to say that since Chase Claypool broke out. This is Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, the problem with these Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers is just like I told you to sell high on Deontay Johnson a week ago, I think we need to be doing the same with a Juju Smith-Schuster this week. Now, Juju's coming off of back-to-back performances where he was able to produce. This game, he saw 8 targets, 7 receptions, 67 yards. But the problem here is we know that there's always going to be one wide receiver in Pittsburgh not necessarily seeing the production that we really want for a wide receiver 2. And with Deontay Johnson getting that goose egg this past week, with Chase Claypool doing the same 2 weeks ago, I don't think that this is showing us that Juju is safe in this offense. If anything, what it's telling me is it's telling me that the target share for all 3 of these wide receivers is going to be highly volatile each week. And if you can go and sell a Juju Smith-Schuster who's had 4 weeks straight of under 60 receiving yards earlier on this season, I think that's going to be an opportunity where you can go and sell a lot higher than what you would have been able to get 2 weeks ago. Just understanding that Chase Claypool isn't going anywhere. Deontay Johnson is going to come back in this offense and get more targets than he saw last week. So while, trust me guys, I love the talent of Juju, just very similar to a Mike Evans, very similar to Travis Fulgham. At the end of the day, talent can only get you so far in fantasy football production. You are going to end up needing that target share. Okay, now our next wide receiver is someone that got flooded with targets last week, so I'm sure y'all are going to be kind of annoyed with me going down one lane then wanting to pivot to the other, but Cooper Kupp. Now, Cooper Kupp is coming off a performance where he saw over 20 targets. He had 11 receptions and 110 yards. But a couple things here. One, Cooper Kupp is actually dealing with an injury that he suffered last week that is really currently flying under the radar in fantasy football. On top of that, we have seen Cooper Kupp just drastically decrease his efficiency year over year over year. To this point, now that he has the injury, I think maybe Sean McVay looks at what we are seeing with Cooper Kupp and tries to get the other weapons in this offense a little bit more involved, because we're looking at currently his yards per reception, and it is sitting at 11.0, which puts him 85th in the NFL. And if we look at back last year, he was sitting at 12.4 yards per reception, which was 58th in the NFL. We look back the year before that, he was hitting at 14.1. So yes, I understand that Cooper Kupp is the type of wide receiver that is running routes closer to the line of scrimmage. We're actually going to see his catch rate be a lot higher than most players. And generally, based on this wide receiver prototype, they do tend to have that lower yards per reception. Still, I think that if it's this drastic, if we are seeing just a consistent fall off, I think we have to take notice in knowing that this team went out and invested in Van Jefferson, another slot wide receiver, in the second round in the 2020 NFL draft, and knowing now that Cooper Kupp has that injury. And also, if we zoom back to 2019, please remember, guys, Cooper Kupp was a wide receiver that started off and was about a top 3 option in fantasy football. Then after the bye week, Sean McVay looked at his personnel, looked at why the Los Angeles Rams were not succeeding, changed up everything, actually came out and decided to run more 12 personnel, take Cooper Kupp off the field for the majority of snaps. And I think maybe, just maybe, it is a chance we see something similar to that going forward in 2020, where obviously this is not like sounding the alarm. This is just something to keep in the back of our minds, because I see nobody else discussing this, but we have to remember what Sean McVay decided to do coming out of the bye in 2019. Okay, now our last wide receiver, Mike Williams. Now with Mike Williams, it's going to be very simple here. I think an easy way, an easy rule that you can get an advantage over your league mates with is just selling the wide receivers that have that extremely high average depth of target, that have that extremely low catch rate after one of their spike week performances, because we are looking at Mike Williams now coming off a game where he saw 8 targets, had 5 receptions, almost 100 total yards, and a touchdown. But the problem here is we are just never going to see a wide receiver of this prototype unless they're an elite option really be able to provide us any type of consistency, because right now Mike Williams has a total of 2 games with 5 receptions, and that's his highest number so far this season. And if we look at the other games in 2020, he's came away with 1 reception, 2 receptions, and 4 receptions. So with Mike Williams, yes, he's going to be a lot more efficient than some of these other options, just not someone that we can confidently rely on each and every week in our starting lineup. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, please make sure you go down there, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. It really, really helps us out.